and welcome to this Life Without Limits. I'm your host, Weston, and I'm grateful that you've chosen to spend some time with me, and I trust that the conversation I'm going to share with you in this episode will have a ton of value for you. My guest today is Andrew Schultz, and Andrew is an international speaker, facilitator, coach, podcaster, and mentor. His work has served to catalyze transformation in the lives of thousands of people from all walks of life who are magnetized to his positive energy, his vulnerability, and his ability to create meaningful connection. In this episode, we get into the power of a good walk-up song. We discuss the turbulence being experienced in some areas of the manosphere right now. And most importantly, we discuss some strategies for turning your mess into your message. I'm excited to share this conversation with you. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right, everybody. I just want to welcome Andrew Schultz to this Life Without Limits. It's great to see you, man.
Weston, thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah, I feel like this has been a conversation that's been a long time in the works. You know, I've been supporting and admiring you from afar, man, and I'm just really grateful for, you know, your willingness to drop in with me today for a little while.
Absolutely, brother. And I want to acknowledge you for all that you're doing in the world. I'm a big fan of yours and I respect you, and I'm glad we made this happen.
Thank you, man. Yeah, me too. So here's sometimes with people I talk to, I write down a bunch of questions and I'm like, all right, I got to kind of get this conversation right. But you and I spoke last week to kind of like just get familiar with each other and talk a little bit about you know, making this happen. And I just felt like we can just flow, man. I'm pretty confident that we got that in us. And so the way that I felt like we ought to kick this off, and I'm going to borrow something that I heard you do with a guest maybe a month or so ago, and I'm going to ask you about your walk-on song. All right, do you remember asking that question before?
Oh yeah.
Because I want to tell you why. Because I listened to that episode and I'm like, oh my God, that is such a great question. And what would my walk-on song be? So I have an answer for you, but I'm curious. Can we talk about your walk-on song?
Well, my walk-up song was DMX. Up in here, y'all gonna make me lose my mind. And that was my actual walk-up song during college baseball.
That's amazing, dude.
I was a college baseball player, and that was my walk-up song. And all my teammates were pissed because they wanted that walk-up song. And I'm telling you, dude, striding up to the plate, you could just feel the adrenaline. And sometimes there's probably too much adrenaline for a baseball game. But it was DMX. And so that was my walk-up song. My walk-up song today, Weston, it would be Trevor Hall, Open Doors.
Beautiful. Both of those. So yeah, I mean, when you mentioned that adrenaline, right? So did it take you a pitch or two to kind of get like grounded at the plate after being all hyped up with DMX?
Well, you know, more times than not, it actually got me really focused.
Okay.
Because it's easy in baseball, you know, it's a 3.5 hour game. And so it's easy to go into lulls with lack of action. And so it really actually helped me focus and got me in the moment, into my body, like that felt experience.
Yeah.
It helped me get in my body and out of my brain, ironically enough.
Man. That's amazing.
But I think the Trevor Hall song, like that's my walk-up song now. So I think that's more important for listeners.
Yeah.
Trevor Hall, Open Doors.
Open Doors. I'm actually writing that down, dude, because I'm going to go and find that after we're done, just so I can like relate for sure.
Please do.
I will. And I'm going to get back to you on it because I have the feeling that it's going to move something in me for sure, man.
Man, it is a heart mover, and I get emotional thinking about it right now and talking about it because it's one of those songs. And I've seen Trevor Hall a couple times live. Yeah. And his music, it moves you. Yeah. And you know, it's a heart opener, heart centered. Yeah. Quiet the mind, open the heart, and you put that song on and close your eyes and just give yourself permission to move your body a little bit. Man, it will move you. It will move your soul. It will move your spirit.
I love that. I love that. I mean, music has always been like, it's always had a really powerful influence on just my quality of experience, whether that's in groups of people or alone or in like moments of grief or joy or whatever. Like, I mean, music is a beautiful way to kind of like really anchor that experience deeply in your body, man. You know, and so actually that I do have a follow-up on that. And it was like, when did Trevor Hall, like when did that come into your field that it was like that's the song? What was coming up for you?
Ooh, great question. It was in 2016. I had just gotten sober. And I went to a treatment center, turned my life around. My life previously was in the corporate world, in a much different state. I got sober. I ended up losing everything I had. And I literally, Weston, rebuilt my life on a yoga mat. I had nothing else. And I rebuilt my life from that yoga mat up. And I fell in love with yoga. I fell in love with breath work, meditation. I never had a relationship with my breath before until I got sober. And I started, I loved yoga so much. I became a certified yoga teacher. And Trevor Hall was the person, he was my go-to on all of my yoga playlists that I would play in my yoga classes because I would listen to him. His words resonated so much with me at a time when I needed it the most, because I was newly sober. I was raw. I was just like I was like, what the hell is going on with my life? I didn't have drugs and alcohol and women and all these external things to use to numb out. And I was 36 years old, raw as raw can be. And his music, like you said, music moves us, music impacts us. And his music, I started listening to when I was a student of yoga, and then I became a yoga teacher, and he was my go-to for all my playlists. That's how I stumbled across Trevor Hall. And man, it's amazing the impact music can have on us. For anybody who has ever been to a sound healing, crystal bowls, sound bath, to feel that frequency resonate throughout our whole cellular structure. And it's healing, man.
Yeah, I agree with that, dude. And I think that it's really interesting. I mean, you and I share a lot of not only experiences from our past, but also our current state, right? Like we're both in the wellness world. We're both coaches. We're both in men's work. We're both always kind of like exploring avenues for continued growth and transformation, which is really beautiful. And I love what you're saying about that moment when you found yoga and rebuilt your life from the yoga mat. I've done yoga like maybe 2 or 3 times. And every time I'm like, I love this. And it never, like the hooks don't get in, So what was coming up for me when you were saying that was like I'm a big fan of child pose, right? Like that's obviously like one of the easiest poses to kind of like drop into. And yet it is that place from which like our origin story begins there, right? Like that to me seems like a beautiful place to like not only be in like a moment of surrender and vulnerability, but also like anything can come from that moment, and I love that, man.
And I want to say, like, for people listening, it's really important. And I'm glad you pointed out child's pose, because that's usually how classes start out. And through the progression of the yoga class, at the end, it's called Shavasana. The last pose is Shavasana, also known as dead man's pose. And it signals a dying of the old ways that no longer serve us and a rebirth of the new ways of being. And so like the yoga practice has been around for thousands and thousands of years. And the yogis had it right because they had this emphasis on the power of the breath. Way before Wim Hof and all these breath work gurus now, it started with yoga, the practice of yoga. And For me, I fell in love with it, Weston, because it was a felt experience at a time in my life when I was so in my head because I was, the previous 4 years, I was in this downward spiral of addiction with drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
And I get sober, I find yoga, and I get into my body,
Mm-hmm.
and I start to feel versus think.
Mm.
And, we wear our whole life experience, every memory, experience, trauma, good memory, bad memory, we wear it at a cellular level in our body.
Yeah.
And so getting into our body and moving, it's critical.
Yeah.
And what the yoga practice allowed for me to do is the first time in my life that it was a felt experience. I was in my body feeling versus thinking.
Yeah.
And I had so much stuff that I had pushed down. And every class I was crying. Every time, every class I was having a spiritual experience,
Mm-hmm.
and there was crying, there was emotions, and I didn't know why at first. And as I progressed and learned more about everything we're talking about, like we store it in our body.
Yeah.
All those memories and all the things that I was numbing out over.
Yeah.
And stuffing and repressing and avoiding.
Yeah.
They were coming to the surface in the yoga class. And 8 years later, I still have emotional releases, whether it's in a breathwork class, a yoga class, a felt experience in my body. There's emotion because for so many years, I pushed so much stuff down.
Yeah. You know what's really interesting about that, man? And I allow myself in these sorts of scenarios to just, I allow for whatever comes up, right? And I am a deeply emotional person, very connected to my heart, will cry like at the drop of a hat kind of a situation. And the other morning, I was in doing my morning meditation, and there's a man in the men's workspace who, and this may have come into your field over this past week or not, but he's fairly well known, and kind of an influencer, has a big podcast, all kinds of stuff. And he has been going through an incredibly difficult season of his life, even after he's accomplished all of these things. And this is a man who I have an immense amount of respect for, because my entry into men's work was through his organization, and so I came into men's work after this deep catabasis that was like, I was in the fucking darkness, dude, like in the mud, alone, with nobody that I could relate to, and so I guess, in saying that, when we talk about like these emotional things that sort of come up for me, that relatability, like going back and actually like almost embodying that pain that this person must feel, or the solitude, the shame, all those sorts of things that I felt. For me, it built a ton of empathy, like being able to sort of tap back into the resistance that I felt leading up to that pivot point. It's something that I kind of hope I never lose touch with, and it hits me in like the strangest moments, like it could be my son could say something to me that's just like this little drop of wisdom. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. It's powerful, man. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's such a beautiful gift to be like tied into or tapped into, I guess, that power of understanding that, we are not the sum of our trials or our difficulties or our failures or whatever, and yeah. So I am curious, like when that pivot point happened for you, we were talking.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, for sure, man.
I want to acknowledge you for what you just shared. I think it's really important as, as leaders in the space. It's really important, Weston, that for people listening, that we give, I know for me, I only ask of others what I first ask of myself. And I know that the person, I'm pretty sure I know the person you're referencing, and that person gives us all permission to be vulnerable. And it's part of, I believe, the healthy masculine of showing that vulnerability. And you're sharing it right now. And I want to acknowledge you because there's a lot of, how I grew up. It was not modeled for me, how to be vulnerable and how to ask for help and raise my hand and say, hey, I don't like this. I'm scared.
Yeah.
I have fear. Like, what do I do? Like, help.
Yeah.
Like, how do I talk about this in a way I'm able to share my feelings in a safe way and ask for what I want and need? I didn't get that. And what I'm not saying is my mom and dad were bad. What I am saying is they did the best they could with what they had. And, the way they were modeled when they were kids, so it's important that we talk about this. This is a really important topic especially for men listening. Because I know what happens, Weston, what happens when I don't share my vulnerability and ask for help and say, ouch, I hurt. I'm scared. I need help. I tried that and it almost killed me.
Yeah.
And when I say it almost killed me, my rock bottom was April 29th, 2015. I was in so much pain that I was taking sleeping pills and not wanting to wake up. The idea in my brain was my life is better with me not in it.
Yeah, man.
And so, I don't wish that pain and suffering on anybody, but thank God my family got me the help that I needed, and they did an intervention and got me the help that I needed. And I went to a treatment facility and I was able to turn my life around. But that rock bottom, it's my greatest asset now. My darkest hour, my rock bottom, and my greatest challenge is now my superpower, my greatest asset, and my brightest light to empower and support and to serve others.
Yeah.
Put more simply, my mess is now my message. And I think it's really important for people listening. For me, it was addiction. Others might be overcoming cancer. Others might be a bankruptcy. Others might be a divorce, a failed relationship, a health scare. We are all uniquely qualified based on our darkest hour. Our greatest struggle in our entire life becomes our greatest asset. And it helps us because we are uniquely qualified because we've been through it and overcame it and got through to the other side. Yeah. We are uniquely qualified to help others.
Yeah. Yeah. It's beautiful, man. And I think for me, so I just want to acknowledge you for sharing that as well, man. I mean, that's such an eloquent and beautiful way to give people permission to step into whatever healing that they need to do, and I know for myself, like every time I sit in a container with men or even have conversations with men about difficulties or challenges or pain that they may be experiencing in life, that and I don't say this to diminish their experience, their lived experience, but there's so much commonality, dude, between like everyone's experience, and I sat in a circle of men at the beginning of March, and going around the room, like everybody's young and old and black and white and gay and straight and like the whole spectrum of humanity. And you could almost like every man could raise their hand, like, have you experienced this pain before? Have you experienced this resistance before? And it's just, for me, like, I'm not sure that I had a sense of that before I got into this work, or before I started coming back home to myself, that it was like, and it feels good because I do remember, I mean, for me, my rock bottom was like, I mean, I had this season of difficulty, but it really came to a head in June of 2018, and feeling like I didn't have a single man that I could reach out to, or a single person really. And no one reached out to me in those moments either, being like, I see you. Let me just give you a hug, and then let me kind of give you a little kick in the ass, to kind of like get you going in the right direction, man. And I think my mission, like since then, has been to make sure that every person that I meet knows that they got at least one person that they could reach out to, and that's kind of like, I feel like that's my mission in the world, dude, is to just sort of spread that message, like, you're not alone,
Yeah. And I think, for me, when I first got sober, I remember, sitting in a small group. And I remember we were sharing, and what you just shared, Weston, was so impactful for me that I got to experience firsthand. We were going around the group, and I started to look and see the similarities versus the differences. Mm-hmm. And like hearing another man say to me these simple words, yeah, me too. Mm-hmm. Hearing another man or woman say that, and that relatability, and the human suffering is the thing that unites us the most. Yeah. At the end of the day. Yeah. And to know that we're not alone. Yeah. To know that people have maybe different experiences, but we can see the similarities in those experiences. But the human suffering is the thing that unites us the most, and we all suffer it's in some way, shape, or form. And you and I have that in common, mm-hmm. because my mission is to empower, support, inspire, and serve so others know they're not alone.
Yeah, man.
Because I never want people to feel how I felt on April 29th, 2015, mm-hmm. when I didn't have anybody there. Mm-hmm. It was no fault of except my own. It was my own fault because I was mired in this downward spiral. I pushed everybody away. Yeah. But feeling that loneliness and that isolation and that disconnection, and the drugs and alcohol and the women weren't working anymore. And that's something I don't wish upon anybody. Yeah. And that's why I'm doing the work that I'm doing today. And I've been to too many funerals and celebrations of life over the last 8 years from people who didn't raise their hand and reach out and say, ouch, I'm hurting.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for stepping into that, man. I mean, it's important. It's important work, and I'm curious, like when you start working with someone, what's some of your favorite modalities for kind of beginning to sort of peel back some of those layers, or sort of break down some of that resistance that we all have? Like, we're never going to not have resistance to growth and change and all that kind of stuff. What's some of your favorite ways of getting in there?
My favorite is a simple 3 words: uncover, discover, and discard. So I ask my clients, what are the things that are getting in the way of you being your best self, your highest good? What are the things getting in the way of you living a life of maximum success, significance, and fulfillment? Whether it's a shitty job that is sucking their soul, unhealthy relationship, destructive patterns of, pornography, emotional eating, alcohol, gaming, Netflix, whether it's a sleep routine that's not serving them, whether it's a lack of good nutrition. But asking that question, what are the things getting in the way of you being your best self? What are the distractions and obstacles? So that's the uncover part.
Yeah.
The discover part is discovering with the client the negative impact and the consequences those behaviors, patterns, limiting beliefs are having on their life and in the lives of those around them. And then discarding those old ways of being that no longer serve them and replace those with new, healthy, positive lifestyle strategies that are in alignment with their values and support them in being the person that they want to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
And,
Yeah. Yeah.
getting clear on that and asking the question. And it makes them, most clients, if it doesn't make them uncomfortable, I'm worried.
Yeah, I know, right?
And so there should be a lot of resistance, because for most people, it's the first time they're actually looking at, they're looking at I call it emotional bag of shit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we all have it. And, and so getting them to look at their emotional bag of poo.
Yeah.
And knowing and reassuring them the only way to get through it is to go through it.
Yeah.
And not around it, because I tried for so long to go around it, and it doesn't work. And so, and I tell the client on day one, I never ask you to do things I'm not willing to do myself. And all the things I ask you to do are things I've done in my own life that have helped transform me to get to where I am today and living a life of, purpose and meaning.
Yeah.
And, in my corporate job back in the day, I thought I was happy because I had all the trappings of the material stuff. I was making a lot of money. I had all the material stuff by society standards. I was successful.
Right.
But I was miserable, and I was drinking and drugging as a way of coping, and it wasn't sustainable, and it wasn't work that I was passionate about. Yeah. I liked making a lot of money, but it was sucking my soul.
Yeah.
And so working with clients, after we do that uncover, discover, and discarding, then we start to do, getting them crystal clear on what their values are.
Yeah.
What are their goals? Mm-hmm. What are their dreams, desires? What are their dreams and desires? Like, what do they want more than anything else? And give them permission to write it down and to step into it, and then build a roadmap to achieving whatever that is. And 99% of us we're satisfied being comfortable and content. It's my opinion. Mm-hmm. And that's why, I love doing what I do. And I have a coach myself. I have a mentor myself. Yeah. And I believe the best investment, and Warren Buffett says this, who is the most successful investor in the history of the entire world.
Of planet Earth. That's right. Yeah.
And he says the best investment he's ever made is the investment he made in himself when he took a Peter Drucker personal development course in communications. Mm-hmm. And Warren Buffett credits that communications course as the foundational principle that allowed him to accumulate $10 billion net worth. And my point is, he invested in himself.
Yeah.
I've invested in myself. I never ask others to do things I'm not willing to do myself.
Yeah.
And we all need people, Weston, in our life to help us see our limiting beliefs, our blind spots. We need people to be our cheerleader.
Yeah.
Our tough love, our kick in the ass, the support and accountability that comes along with when a coach and client work together. That's where the magic happens. And, we all need people in our life now more than ever. And I think the latest statistic is 15% of men report having only one friend in their life.
Yeah.
So if we just get specific with men, 15% of men are walking around with only one person to call a friend.
Yeah.
And that breaks my heart.
Yeah, man.
And so that's why I do what I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious what, so for me, one of the things, like a big piece of resistance that I had to overcome, and frankly, still kind of like it still comes back up, is this idea of, if I show weakness, or if I show vulnerability, or if I don't really like present myself in the world as having all my shit together, I'm going to get judged, right? I'm going to get like, and that's a story from childhood, right? That's a story from family of origin that has been so difficult to rewrite for me personally, and so I'm curious, like, I think, I mean, I have my thoughts on being a coach, or just a catalyst of other people's like transformation, how we want to show up. But I'm just curious, like, how does that come up for you, of people just like not want, like, I don't want you, I'd love some help, but I don't want you to judge me, right?
For sure. And I think when I first start talking to people who are even interested in developing a coaching relationship
Mm-hmm.
or a mentoring relationship is, one of the first things I first say, hey, everything we talk about is confidential. It stays between you and I. It's important that you know that.
Mm-hmm.
Not only do I invite you to share information that's, personal with me, just as important, I'm going to share information with you that's coming from a vulnerable place.
Mm-hmm.
And I share a lot of my journey.
Mm-hmm.
I share a lot of my mess,
Mm-hmm.
because I never want people to think I have it all together, that I have
Right.
it all figured out, because
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
Even today, I don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And, one of my mentors used the analogy when I was talking to him last night is, he's been running through a forest, just like he's in the middle of the forest, running through the forest, and just like failing forward, and just
Uh-huh.
like in the work of growing his coaching program. And that really resonated with me, because when I share that from a vulnerable place with people who I get the opportunity to work with, it brings us closer together, because
Yeah.
they can, like I said earlier, they can say, when I say to them, me too,
Yeah.
you're not alone, I understand,
Mm-hmm.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm.
And giving them permission that they don't have, nobody's got it all figured out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's got it all figured out, man. Like,
Yeah.
the older I get and the more work I do on myself,
Mm-hmm.
the less I know it feels. And
Yeah.
it's like, I never want to be content with thinking I have it all figured out. There's no way. Like,
Yeah.
it's a journey that we're all on,
Yeah.
and we all have stuff that we're working through. Yeah, back to your question, this idea of perfection, like, man, getting our ass kicked and sharing my failures with people, friends, coaching clients, it's just as important that I share that with them
Mm-hmm.
than the other stuff,
Yeah.
because it gives
Yeah.
them permission to fail forward, to get your ass kicked, fall down, get back up. That is our greatest teacher, our own, I'm not going to call them failures, our learning opportunities.
Learned experience. Yeah, for sure, man.
Yep. Firsthand experiential things
Uh-huh.
as we stumble our way, whether it's relationships, work, health, fitness, spirituality. It's the man in the arena
Yeah.
that Brene Brown uses.
Uh-huh.
We're all in the arena getting our ass kicked, marred in blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
And I never want to be the guy in the cheap seats criticizing the person in the ring in the arena getting their ass kicked. None of us ever get criticized by people who are doing less than we're doing.
Right. Right.
And I want people in my corner, people like you, Weston, that we can share our learning opportunities together.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings us closer together, because we don't have it all figured out.
Yeah.
And it
100%.
builds this intimate connection with each other when we're able to do that. And that's why it's so important, these conversations that we're having right now, for people listening. I don't have it all figured out, man.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 44 years old. And for the first time in my life, I'm learning how to be in an intimate relationship with a woman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's freedom when I share that with you and your audience.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much freedom that comes with it, because I don't have to pretend and put on a front that I have it all figured out.
Yeah.
For the first time in my life, I'm learning how to be a man in a relationship with a woman.
Yeah.
to give a shit about her needs
Uh-huh.
and not be so selfish, and to show up with an open heart and walls down,
Uh-huh.
learn how to consciously communicate,
Mhm.
ask for what I want, make sure I'm asking what she needs and wants.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm 44 and I'm just learning for the first time how to do that.
Yeah. That hits, bro. Like it definitely hits. And I wanted to say also that I love that analogy of being in the forest or running in the forest, right? Like I've been an athlete and an endurance athlete my whole life. I can't say that I love running, but if there is an aspect of running I love, it's trail running, right? Like because of all the simplicity of it, right? It's just shoes and shorts and a shirt, maybe a hat, music perhaps. And then it's like, what is happening in this forest? I don't know, dude. There could be a bear, there could be a cliff, there could be a root, all kinds of stuff that you got to pay attention to and improvise. Um, I love that. And I think that it's so stimulating cognitively and somatically to try and like navigate all those sorts of things. And the question I have for you, I know you just moved up to Oregon, right? So it's really kind of a two-part question. Is one is how has that change of venue been for you, or how has it continued to sort of like reignite or bolster your transformation journey? And then also, again, being an athlete yourself, right? Is it's like how does anchoring these experiences in the body, like I know that's important for you personally, but how does that fold into the work that you're doing with other people, right?
Mm, great question. And I think my answer is going to satisfy both questions,
Okay.
ironically.
Yeah.
Moving up from San Diego 4 months ago to Bend, Oregon, it's been one of the greatest challenges of my life.
Mm.
Cohabitating with my girlfriend for the first time, moving into a new community where we barely knew anybody. I was very immersed in my San Diego community, the recovery community, the yoga community, the personal development, spiritual space.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what I've found, Weston, is a sense of awe and wonder that I've never experienced in my life.
Mm.
Today and yesterday and every day, I go on a 3-mile hike. Some days I see my family of deer. There's 9 deer. And most days I see the family of deer. And when I say I see them, it's a spiritual experience.
Mm.
The deer are 20 feet away. It's a family of deer. We make eye contact for 2 minutes.
Mm.
I feel the divine's presence in that deer every time I see them. It's a spiritual experience, unlike anything I've ever experienced before. In nature, no technology, off the grid, just me and these animals. Other days I see blue jays. Other days I see squirrels. Other days I see quail. That sense of awe and wonder, living in San Diego, I didn't experience that. There was, a lot of concrete, a lot of traffic, noise pollution. Up here, I feel God's presence, the divine. I'm connected to nature, on the land, Mother Earth. That's what I've experienced living in Bend, Oregon. The biggest thing that I could share with you is a sense of awe and wonder.
Mm.
And that sense of awe and wonder is the reason I moved up here. Is I wanted to first experience it for myself, to disconnect from the go, 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 do, keeping up with the Joneses, overworking, over caffeinated, like accumulating more and more stuff, that concrete jungle, the matrix, whatever you want to call it. I wanted to come up here because I knew there was more.
Yeah.
And whether this chapter and season of my life is going to be in Bend, I don't know how long it's going to last, but I want to share these experiences with other people and to hold retreats and immersions, to bring people onto the land, to co-facilitate so they can feel this sense of awe and wonder. Especially for men, I think it's something that's missing.
Yeah.
A deeper connection to something greater than ourselves, a connection to the land, nature, Mother Earth, a sense of awe in animals. I think it's so important.
Yeah.
And so your second question, it's a felt experience. And so to feel these things, it's not something I'm reading out of a book. Mm-hmm. It's something I get to feel and experience. It's a felt experience. And like, I'm more active now than I've ever been in my life because we have this trail in nature every day. And it's my divine connection. It's my hour and a half to just be versus do. Yeah. It's an hour and a half to feel versus think.
Yeah.
And so what happens with that awe and wonder, it's the creative downloads, the perspective shift, what's important, what I want to, how I want to show up for myself, my girlfriend, my family, my community. I'm able to tap into that a lot more. And so, yeah, it's a sense of awe and wonder being outside in nature that I've never experienced before. And it's an appreciation that I've never had.
Yeah.
And it's creating new life experiences and new adventures that my life was missing. And I knew it was missing because I was losing my enthusiasm and zest for the things that used to really fill me up when I was living in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was ready for a new chapter, a new season in a new community in an area that I've never been in. And there was something calling me up here.
Yeah.
And so I really want people listening, maybe consider this me giving you permission to step into whatever it is your new season and new chapter in your life is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you need to move to a new community in a different state like I did, but maybe it's, time to have the courage to end a relationship that's no longer healthy and it's no longer in your best interests and it's not in your aligning with your values. Maybe it's starting that side hustle and going all in with that new business idea that you really want to do that you've been putting off, staying in that job that's sucking the life out of you.
Yeah.
Because here's the disclaimer. We're all going to die. And I do not want to get to the end of my life and look back and have a regret that I should have done this and I should have done that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's I don't know if you follow Ed Milet on social media or not, or if you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I do.
So, I mean, Ed's a really super inspirational dude. And I remember he has a story like that essentially he's like, the way that I picture myself meeting myself in heaven. And I don't want to have like any regrets with how I moved through this life, and so that's a really beautiful visualization exercise, to help keep you in alignment and moving forward towards, that life of purpose, that we were talking about, man. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And it's within all of us,
mm-hmm.
And we all deserve to live a life of maximum success and significance and fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And I really would just want to encourage people, to go all in, to take that first step, to find a mentor, trusted friend or coach to help you get to where you want to go. But I just, what really, to see people living in a life that is not fulfilling to them, it's not their purpose. It's not meaningful. And they're content being miserable.
Yeah.
Whether it's a relationship, a job, whatever it is. And I want so much for people to just know that, to take that first step, to find the people who have what you want, and start doing what they're doing, and asking how they got from where they were to where they are, and just start having those conversations, leading with curiosity. And the right people, when you take that first step, the right people will come into your world, your sphere.
Yes. Automatically. It just happens, dude.
It can't not happen. It's quantum physics, energy, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But it starts with that intention, and taking that first step is, this life I'm living is no longer serving me.
Yeah.
I know I want more. I don't know what exactly it is, but I'm going to take this first step. I'm going to pick up the phone, call this person, ask this person how they got to where they are. And it starts with that intention of, I know my life is meant to be more than what I'm doing now.
Yeah. I agree with that, man. It's something that's really been super alive in me over the last, since this year really began, is a real deep sense of brotherhood, and I'm coming off of a week of a 5-day challenge with my men's group that was breath work and journaling prompts and movement, and also contributing, like talking in our community about how that's felt, and there were men who, on Monday, we started on Monday, they were like, yeah, I'm all in for 5 days. I'm going to knock it all out every single day. I'm going to hit all those aspects. And you see, as the week goes on, like, who's still in, who's like, the fucking A+ student that's like knocking it out of the park every single day. And yesterday I noticed that there were a few men that were chiming in with like, man, I really haven't done anything this week. I wanted to get into this challenge. And my response in our Telegram chat was like, what's one thing that you can do today that's going to move the needle for you? You don't have to like overcomplicate this, dude. I was like, one thing can change everything. What is that for you? And that, I think that's really powerful, dude. Like, whether it is just having that, a very simple conversation, or, reaching out, like when you are in the shit. And I'm going to speak for myself. When I was in my office, drunk, alone, in tears, just in despair, everything felt so overwhelming to me in that moment. Like how is anything where could I go? It's impossible for me to do that. Right. And the one thing I did, and I didn't even have this insight, right? The one thing I did was type into a little Google browser window, how to be a better man. That was one thing that changed everything. So to sort of like support what you're saying, right, is it's like, don't let yourself get so overwhelmed by the magnanimity, or the perceived magnanimity of your situation, right? Like, just do one thing, man. So
yeah. My mentor says, he said it again last night. He's like, and he says it, I got to give it some context, in a very loving, nurturing, tough love. He's got my back. He wants the best for me. He's my go-to guy. He said, Andrew, fuck your feelings. Your feelings don't pay your bills. Put food on the table and give people a hug. And I'm saying that I'm saying that in a way that, when I hear you say, Weston, our feelings can overwhelm us. We can get so caught up in what our feelings are, and it stops us and keeps us from taking action. So for people listening, I'm not being an a-hole. What I'm saying is, we act our way into right thinking. We don't think our way into right acting. When we move a muscle, so I'm going to say it again. We act our way into right thinking versus thinking our way into right acting.
Yeah.
So when we move a muscle, it changes a thought. It changes our biochemistry. That's why Tony Robbins makes so much money. He gets people to change their biochemistry. by moving their body, taking an action, getting uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so an action that people can take for, if you're listening and you're feeling overwhelmed, just like Weston did, first thing in the morning, write down a list of 1 to 3 things, action steps that you can take starting tomorrow. Mm-hmm. What are 3 things that you can do, action steps that move you closer to making your life more significant and fulfilling? It's a step that moves you closer to being a better version of yourself, a version of you that is going to be healthier and happier. Yeah. Write down 3 things. It could be listen to an Ed Milet podcast, call a trusted friend who has what I want. They're happy, they're successful, they're doing something in their life that you're drawn to, and have a conversation and ask them questions of how they got to where they are. Go for a trail run. So 3 action steps that literally change your biochemistry, and you're not in the same place tomorrow as you are today. Yeah. That's how transformation starts, 1 step at a time. That's how my journey started in 2015 on April 30th. My first day of being sober. Yeah. Raising my hand saying, I'm an alcoholic. My name is Andrew. I'm an addict. My name is Andrew. Mm-hmm. That day, April 30th, 2015, I was so overwhelmed. I was thinking to myself, how am I going to go the rest of my life without drinking and drugging? Yeah. It was like, I could not fathom, like there was no way I could go the rest of my life without doing the things that for the last 15 years, that's all I knew. Yeah. Uh-huh. And so I share that because it was 1 day at a time. Andrew, how do you thrive in recovery for 8 years? My answer, 1 day at a time. So for people listening, start tomorrow morning to create a transformation in your life. Write down 3 action steps that you can take tomorrow that moves you closer to your goals and your dreams and desires. That's it. Do that 1 day at a time, and I promise your life will get better.
Yeah. 1,000%, man. 1,000%. All right. I'm going to let that just kind of land for a second. So I know we need to kind of think about landing the plane here shortly. And what I'd love to do, man, is just create some space here for you to talk about what's coming up for you. I know you've got some really exciting things that are on the horizon, in-person events. So I just wanted to sort of open that up for you to talk about that a little bit. And then in the show notes and everything, I'll link all this stuff up. I'll get all that from you and we'll get it out to people.
So, the in-person retreats and immersions. The first retreat I have coming up, it's called Brotherhood in Bend. It's April 27th through the 30th. We are in a very remote part of Bend, Oregon. We have a private Airbnb, a private chef, and we are for 4 days. It's 8 men coming together under one roof to do transformational self-development work, to spend time out in nature, on the land, disconnecting from the day-to-day grind, rat race, go, do, to reconnect to self, spirit, brothers, and to create a sense of awe and wonder for men to tap into, so they become more effective leaders for themselves, their families, and their communities. It's an experience, a felt experience in a safe container away from the matrix. That's a big reason why I moved up here, to create these experiences for men and women. I'm doing co-ed retreats as well, but that's the first event coming up. And then I have 2 more retreats coming up in July and September. Same thing. The one in July is going to be a co-ed called Breakthroughs in Bend.
Okay.
And then I'm going to have another one in September. I'm not sure if it's going to be co-ed or men only. But so I have 3 retreats coming up, and the intention, Weston, is to create a sense of awe and wonder for people to tap back into, to come back home to themselves. And it requires us to get off the technology and to connect with self and each other. And I've found the way to do that is 4 to 5 days away from their life as they know it, away from home, away from their comfortable bed, away from their work, away from the screen, the computer, the drive to work every day. It's getting out of that routine and comfort to create discomfort, to create transformation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, for those of you listening that don't know where Bend is or haven't ever seen Bend, Oregon before, really all you got to do is just jump on Google Maps and put it on like Street View. You know, it's a phenomenally beautiful place, man. And I will just say, like, I got to get out there.
Yes, man.
I mean, part of me is wanting to just give you like a big high five and a hug, like period. Right. But yeah, I mean, that like creating containers like that in spaces that are just vibrating with like harmony and connection and this like the generative force, the creative force of nature is powerful. I mean, there is no greater peak experience than something like that, you know. So dope, man. I'm so excited for you. For
me, it's important for people listening. I'm always a student first and foremost. And so what I'm doing with my coach is I'm going at the end of May, I'm going to an island off the coast of Maine, a primitive camping trip called Force of Nature with Dan Doty. And I'm getting really fucking uncomfortable. Like primitive camping it's not synonymous with my life up to this point. And I know life begins at the edge of our comfort zone. And, you know, part of like, why did I move to Bend? Why am I going on this primitive camping trip? I want to remain uncomfortable. That's where the growth happens. That's where the magic happens. That's where life happens, to get uncomfortable. And so I always ask first of myself what I ask of others.
Yeah.
And so for 4 days, sleeping under the stars out in nature with a knife, starting our own fire, like I'm doing that as a student because I want to experience it so I can be a better coach.
Yeah.
But I'm a student first and foremost.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think John Wineland says it really well about seeking depth over comfort, you know, in our experience of life, you know, and firm believer in that, man.
Man, when we get uncomfortable and really play to our edge, and we find an inner strength and courage and resilience that otherwise we could not find.
Yeah.
It takes playing to that edge and getting uncomfortable that we find like that sacred power.
Yeah.
And man, I want that for everybody listening. I want that for all of you.
Amen. Hausch.
Yeah.
Aho, all the things, man, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, brother, listen, I mean, this has been, I mean, I feel like we could just hang out and chat for like 5 hours, you know, but dude, this has been it's been great for me. It's been, I mean, you got great medicine for the world. I'm really proud of you. I just wanted to tell you that, for the work that you're doing, the way you're showing up in all the ways. And so I just want to ask you one more question. And this is just the way I like to kind of wrap up these conversations is, what does it mean to you to live a life without limits?
Getting uncomfortable, embracing change, getting uncomfortable, and doing hard things. To me, that when we do hard things, that's a life without limits, because the limiting beliefs, the self-limiting beliefs that usually we take on as kids from our parents, most people, so many people go through life without questioning those limiting beliefs. And so for me, when I get uncomfortable and do really fucking hard things, it's a way of questioning those beliefs and taking the limits off of what those beliefs are and what's possible in life. That's what living a life without limits means to me.
Yeah. Beautiful, man. Thank you for
And
that.
I promise you, people listening, fucking go all in, burn the boats. I promise you, the universe has your back. Man, you will be supported, and you will find the beauty and the awe and wonder that we all deserve to experience. And I want all of that for all of you. And Weston, I want that for you as well. And I want to acknowledge you. I'm proud of you. I'm grateful for you. And this friendship, this brotherhood that you and I have, we're just getting started. And I'm really excited to watch your continued success. And know I'm one of those people for you, in your corner, rooting for you and cheering you on.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Man, what a joy. It's Friday. I hope you have a great weekend, man. Just enjoy the hell out of it. And yeah, I look forward to catching up with you soon. For everybody listening, we are going to link up all the things that Andrew was mentioning about the programs that are coming up, and all the social media, all that places that we can find you, man. So thank you so much for your time, brother.
Thank you, man.
Absolutely. See you soon. That's it for this episode of This Life Without Limits. I hope you enjoyed this conversation and will join me again for future episodes. If you want to stay updated on new releases, hit the subscribe button below, and don't forget to check out the show notes for additional details and links. I'd also love to hear what you think about the content of this episode, so please feel welcome to drop any comments, thoughts, questions, critique, any of that below. Thanks again for joining me, and I look forward to next time. Until then, here's to a life without limits, my friends.